casual. So
Cool.
I love it that way personally. I just really enjoy having normal human being conversations and not rigid robotic. Let's go through all the questions. And usually when I prompt people, they start talking about themselves and they hit all the points. But today I've
Cool.
got Amani Roberts of the Amani Experience. Welcome, man. Thanks for
Thank you.
coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Tim, for having me. Excited to chat with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was super pumped when you reached out to me, and I spent some time looking into your background and going to your website and checking out all the things you do. And I am fascinated to learn more about you today. So I really I've got a pumped full of energy today. First and foremost, let's just talk origin story, man. Who is Amani and what are you all about?
Yeah, who is Amani? So I'm a individual who grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. I love my D.C. sports teams. Grew up playing soccer and basketball. First got involved with music in middle school, playing the flute, then the saxophone very quickly. Went to Howard University. That's where I saw DJ Biz Markie. That's when I decided I wanted to be a DJ.
Awesome.
Took me a while to go for it, but then became a DJ almost 20 years ago. Lived all across different cities in the United States because I grew up working in hotels. And now I'm like a fractional artist manager, music business professor, and author and DJ. That's the kind of four quadrants I live in.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's a lot of different aspects, a lot of different industries and a lot to juggle. So DJ, if I'm looking back in time here, it looks like you got your start in 2008. Is that correct?
Yeah, like '07, '08. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
'07, '08 time period. Yes.
What facilitated that? Like got you introduced into that?
Well, when I saw Biz Markie, this was in the mid '90s in DC at this club called Quigley's. I was like, "Ooh, I want to do what he does," but I didn't think it was a legitimate career,
Mm-hmm.
which I was wrong. But I kept working for Marriott. Eventually, once I moved to LA, I decided to go for it. To had someone teach me. Well, first I was kind of self-taught, and then learned from a couple DJs that I would follow and watch. Then I went to Scratch Academy. So really, it just took me a while to get the courage to go for it and to really try to really pursue it seriously.
Okay. What's Scratch Academy?
Okay,
That I'm very interested in knowing about.
yes, Scratch Academy is a DJ school that was first started by Jam Master Jay from Run DMC.
Okay.
So it started back in the day in New York. Now he was murdered 6 months after starting the school, but they continued the school and it grew to be nationwide. I went to the LA campus. I went twice. I went once for DJ school and then once for music production.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really intense curriculum. I like to say it's like getting your MBA in DJing, master's degree. And, I went through the program the first time and you have to pass every class. And I missed passing the last class by 2 points. And so I had to take that class again. And ironically, the failure rate increases when you fail. So if you say the failure rate is like 75% the first time, it goes up to 89% the second time because it's just really hard. You get in your head. And
No
so I was
kidding.
able to get through the course and really learn a lot the second time. And that was really a nice launching point for my DJ business.
Now, how long of a course? You didn't mention the length, I don't think, but how long is that typical course?
That program, 6 courses, it takes you about a year to a year and a half. If you stack some classes, you can do it in a year. If you take one class at a time, it'll probably take you about a year and a half. 6 different classes from mixing 101 to mixing 505. They give a scratch class. You have to then learn different sets you have to perform, like lounge set, prime time, opening, prime time with requests. The best class actually was mixing 303, troubleshooting, because as a musician, you're always going to have issues with signal flow, with sound. And so you have to figure out how to fix that, but the music can't stop.
Right.
That class I go back to even now, decades later, just fixing sound. It's crazy. So that's kind of how the curriculum works.
Now, you had on obviously the curriculum and it's all on site and it's one-on-one or group sessions, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, group classes, and you can supplement with individual lessons.
Okay. Now, did you do all of your post training there within the school, the system and the school, or did you have to have your own setup at home and come back and forth and do that? And tell me a little bit about the gear and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
investment and stuff like that.
So they had setups you can go there to practice. It was
Hmm.
probably, well, in LA with the traffic, it's better if you have your own setup at home. You
I
got to
can
fight
only
through the
imagine.
traffic. So at first I had a controller. I'm trying to remember the name of the controller, a Newmark controller that I would use. And then I eventually was able to get a old janky mixer and some turntables. That really helped me because we really learned on turntables and vinyl. And so when you're learning on turntables and vinyl with the major and minor adjustments, it just helps. So once I was able to get my own turntables and a mixer, that's when I was really able to kind of improve and get better because it's just more tactile. It's better. But they had a setup where they had mixers and turntables all over the classroom, like a ton of them. They had some controls you could set up. They had a back room where it was really a really full-fledged setup with huge subwoofers, speakers up top, and everything. So they had some decent equipment. Mostly like towards the end, we had like the Rain 57 mixer, and we had a couple others. Then we had the Rain 62, I think, which was, they made a really big practice of when you're swapping out with the DJ, you have to really swap out, but the music can't stop or you would fail that lesson. So you had to bring in vinyl and be able to match the beat with the vinyl and everything. So they taught us on vinyl. So it was really important. It was really strict, and I'm really glad that I went through that. So that's the equipment. That was kind of some of the activities we did. They had a really, really intense final exam where when you're DJing, based on the position you were in your class with your previous scores would be the time period that you would DJ at in this virtual club, so to speak. And if someone had played songs before you, like if someone played Uptown Funk, Bruno Mars before you, and maybe someone played like Luther by Kendrick, you can't play that song. So you
Boy,
have to really, yes, you have to really be flexible and be ready to go. So it was really, really great training, phenomenal training.
really training you to be on your feet and
Yes.
think on your feet and make second decisions and adjustments to your
Mhm.
set, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's
It was.
beautiful.
Yeah. In
Now,
retrospect, it was. Yeah.
I'm a royalty free composer. One of the biggest franchises that I use in my setup is Native Instruments, and Native Instruments has something called Tractor. Did you
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
experiment with that or incorporate that into your
It
setup? Or
was
are you
it was
mostly more tactile?
it was mostly you could use Tractor or you could use Serato, basically speaking. And so I was a Serato. I learned Serato, but there were some DJs that were on Tractor, so we'd have to switch going back and forth between whatever software platform they were using too. So I was familiar with Tractor. I haven't had a lot of experience using that though.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
now that's, again, for anybody that's listening, those are virtual turntables, and they would pull up the audio file and you would, in essence, be able to scratch or mix those in that essence. Did you find that to be less authentic to the real thing, or was it pretty well? Were you able to accomplish what you wanted to do if you played around with that? I mean, I know you didn't use Tractor, but you used the other one that's a
Yeah,
similar.
correct. Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty very close to the real thing, especially where the technology is.
Yeah.
And there's not too much like the buffer, so it's pretty seamless. It's just like a record, and you could go back and forth between a vinyl record and the virtual too. And many times we do that where you'd have like a vinyl set, but if you need to grab a track that you didn't have the vinyl for, you could dip in and get it and go back and forth. You just have to switch the settings. It was close. It was very good, very close.
That's cool. I mean, I never got into it myself. I always pretty much focused on the VSTs, the software instruments, to make all my stuff. And I was never really a live performer. I mean, I was back in the day, I played keys and bass and did some singing in bands into my
Yeah,
mid 20s. But I turned into kind of what I call myself like a sonic magician. You know, I'll create these sonic landscapes, and that's the stuff that I offer and I put out there into the world, and that's basically the mission of my royalty free catalog. What fascinated me about this whole DJ aspect of the Amani experience is you do some live events and also some virtual events. So
yeah.
so doing virtual DJ events and also game shows. You know, was that part of the DJ side of things that you do, or is it
Yeah, as part of the DJ side of things, it really reached this kind of peak during the COVID, during pandemic. So we had to do virtual events because, if I'm primarily in-person corporate events,
Mhm.
most of those were going non-existent, but they still want to do some events. So through my experience on like Twitch and YouTube live streaming, I started to do some game shows. really to create content to keep us active and engaged during the pandemic. Then as we kind of came out of the pandemic, I kept it going for a while, offered it some clients, so I'll still do some things. That's where the game shows came from. The live streaming I'll still do. I don't do as many DJ sets as I used to, but like I was all in on like OBS and Stream Deck and StreamYard and all the things. Just it was like a master class. So it definitely gave me tools which I can use now to kind of do different things. I still have some virtual clients where I'll record some sets or I'll do something live for conferences and conventions. So it was a great skill to acquire and just maintain now that we're kind of out of the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I could see where that would keep you engaged with an audience and keep you engaged with your brand and what you have to offer. Yet at the same time, keeping that social distance and everything that we were experiencing during it was just a mess. That whole time was
Yeah.
nightmare and a mess. I want to evolve this into your speaking engagements because you take this DJ skill that you have and you've evolved it into part of the speaking portion of the Amani experience in literally doing workshops and doing employee enrichment programs and stuff like that, where you pull in people. I mean, literally watch the video on your website where there's people that you would never think in a million years would be standing in front of a turntable, and they've got ear to ear grins on their faces. They're sitting there and they're mixing things up and they're sitting there and scratching like, oh, wow, this is fun. Like just like kids in a candy shop, you know?
Right.
Talk to me about when did you first decide to pitch that to a business, and how many of those have you done at this point?
Done a bunch. I think I first pitched this to businesses 2017, 2018. We call it the leadership playlist. And you come in, you do a session, and you really get people to. My whole theme is music and creativity. So you get people to come into the room. First, they have to create their DJ name, explain why they created their DJ name. And then we kind of get them to talk about theme songs for the year. And then we get them to come on stage, introduce themselves as a DJ. I'll cue up the track for them, let them scratch in. And, everyone wants to be a DJ. I'm like, man, I want to put the work in to learn how to do it. But everyone wants to get behind the turntables, get that Instagram shot and look cool. And so we do that. But really, what it does is that when you have a team of people, specifically across all different kind of demographics, whether it be age, race, wherever they're from, etc., music can break down significant barriers very easily, very seamlessly. So when you get people together, you'd be shocked that, oh, this person, even though they're from New York City, they love country music, or this person, they might be from, West Texas, but they love some hip hop. And so it really kind of breaks down barriers and allows people to share common things, allows people to set intentions for the year. Like my theme song for this year is going to be, Beautiful by Christina Aguilera. They explain why, because they're going through something personally. So it allows people to get to know each other without it being direct in their face. It's real subtle.
Right.
I love it. Music just helps lower the barriers and helps people learn easier. So that's kind of the genesis of the activity. I do it a bunch and it's continued to evolve. Yeah.
You ever have trouble cracking the shell of one of those corporate people? And once you finally did they end up being one of the best performers once they kind of loosened up?
That happens. Usually I have some different activities that I'll do to really try to get them out of it. Like, for example, if I'm having trouble cracking the shell, we'll kind of shift into like a little bit of a trivia game. Everyone loves trivia. Name That Tune is easy. People can really get into that. And that kind of helps to I kind of have to make a right turn off the exit ramp and then get back on the road once we get together. So that's what I usually do, is combine some trivia and a game aspect too.
Now, outside of the DJ that program, what other type of speaking programs do you perform?
I have two other ones I do. My main one is called Resilient and Brilliant: 7 Keys to Unlocking Your Creativity. And what I do is I have a framework called Coppers, and it talks about how to unlock your creativity. You have to collaborate with others, take creative risks, be persistent, practice resilience, reinvent yourself, embrace failure, stay curious. And I have different musicians and music groups that align with those, with like that theme. So for example, Creative Risks, I talk about Earth, Wind, and Fire. They were one of the first few groups to use a magician for their live shows. They partnered with David Copperfield and became legendary. Talk about them, collaborate with others. We have Kool and the Gang. They reached a certain plateau. I think it was Jungle Boogie that was their biggest hit. It was only when they partnered with JT Taylor as the lead singer, Yumir Deodata as the producer, that they were able to get to the #1 song. We talk about reinvention. I love the story of Dolly Parton. She was a songwriter first, then a singer, Then she was a TV show host, then in movies, then she created Dollywood, then she has the nonprofit. She is like the perfect example of an artist who exemplifies reinvention to the max. So we talk about that, but at the same time, I'm playing people's songs from these artists. Like I'll talk about I Will Always Love You, Dolly Parton, how she wrote that song as like a goodbye letter to her former TV show host. His name is escaping me. I'll talk about how Kool and the Gang, Celebration was their only #1 hit. So we'll play that song. So I talk about the artist. I'll play the songs. We'll have a little lesson, and I'm teaching at the same time. Embracing failure. We talk about Destiny's Child and how they came in second in Star Search to this group called the Skeleton Crew. Now, who have you heard before? Have you heard of Destiny's Child? Have you heard of Skeleton Crew?
Destiny's Child.
Yes,
Yeah.
they embraced failure and came back stronger. And so I have different groups and artists that go through. I think one of my favorite ones currently is like Persistence. I love to talk about Chappell Roan, how she created Pink Pony Club. 4 months or 5 months later, the record label dropped her because the song wasn't a hit. Then she was able to go home. She was humbled, working at a drive-through coffee store, came back to LA, signed with a small label. Eventually, she blew up, did well, and that song hit 1 billion streams. So that just shows you the value of persistence. 13 years worth of persistence. And so that's my topic. I also talk about the written word, the bestseller blueprint, we call it, how to turn written words into influence. Because as a USA Today best-selling author, I talk about my experience, share what I learned, how people can use writing as a way to become a thought leader. That's kind of my second program. So those are the 2 main programs I do in addition to the leadership playlist.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I pursue music in the manner that I do. That level of pressure, that signing with getting enough content and enough pieces that will get attention from from a producer and from the perspective, just you're a musician and you're gonna get signed with somebody. That level of pressure and then the corporatization of the music, I think, is the biggest thing that challenges me as an artist. Over the years, I've written stuff and I've included it in movies, I've included it with online content and everything. But one of the biggest things that the impetus at 5 years ago to go the royalty-free route was just that, to have the freedom to write what I want to write and then let it resonate with the right person. And then the reward for that are the royalty streams that are available all around that. Right. Yeah. So I make this catalog available for people and I get to do what I want to do. And yes, it's going to take longer. It's going to take more time, but it's unique to me. The style is unique to me, and whatever style I want to do is unique. I mean, I literally did a spaghetti Western album last year,
okay, nice.
And if I hadn't gotten poked by somebody that does tabletop gaming and has a YouTube channel, like, do you have any of these kind of? I'm like, no, but that sounds really interesting. Yeah. I think I want to explore that and try that. Okay. And so I jumped into it, and lo and behold, I produced an album worth of the stuff. And some of them I like more than others. You know how it is when you create it. There's things that you like better than others, but some of it I was like, gosh, I nailed that. Good. I really enjoyed this, Awesome. So you are a published author. In addition to all this stuff, Specifically, you have 2 books, and both of those books reference the rise and fall of the prevalence of R&B in mainstream music, correct?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because that parallels a lot of things in my life. Specifically, like I've been in the movie industry in different ways and different aspects over the years, and it literally started for me in video stores. So, I was a video store clerk, just like in Clerks, pushing VHS tapes, then DVDs, then Blu-rays, and watched the rise and fall of physical media and now everything on streaming. There's an interesting parallel with this because music genres really feel like to me, to be very, very generationally specific unless it's timeless, right? I mean, classical music seems to span the test of time because it is some of the oldest and longest lasting and music that is still played live, still emulated. It's in the public domain, so people bring it in and they make their own versions of it and everything. But I have noticed craziness. Like, if I look back on my own life, I'm 51. So, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So I experienced metal hairband music, you know, thrash metal, grunge, industrial music, industrial rock. And those four things specifically, I've seen, you know, a
Yeah.
peak and now a valley. Still listen to, you know, it very much, there's nostalgia now for my generation for all that stuff. So there's like a resurgence of all that, and very interesting that there's now like that happening. So now you're gonna have artists that are gonna try to emulate that again. But it's very strange to me, and it's curious that those feelings and those styles wax and wane. And I'm interested, number one, what gravitated you towards R&B? And number two, what are your feelings about the future of R&B and how prevalent it is?
Okay, so how I got to R&B music is I used to love The Quiet Storm Show, and really before that, my dad would play music, primarily R&B, funk, old school, to wake my brother and I up in the mornings. And
That's a cool way to wake up.
Then we'd have our pancakes and watch cartoons. And then I played a lot of soccer growing up, and I would, I was part of advanced soccer league, so we'd have a lot of road trips up and down the East Coast, and so we play a lot of music in the car.
Plenty of time for that.
That's how my first exposure was. And then I love a good love song, a good ballad, and I just gravitated to R&B music. I would listen to The Quiet Storm, WHUR 96.3, Howard University Radio growing up. They play primarily like R&B music, little soul. Well, it's soul also. And I just started to collect CDs, whether it be, I think one of my first CDs I had was like Whistle, and then of course Michael Jackson, Prince, and then you get into like Boyz II Men, Mariah Carey, Mary J. Blige, Jodeci. So those were all the groups that I was starting to collect the music, whether it be tapes. Rick James was one of my first 45s. I don't know why my dad let me get that, but it was Rick James. And then you mentioned classical music. It was the theme for Peanuts. So those are my two 45s I would have. It's very left, very, very far ends of the spectrum. And then I just started to collect the tapes. I think one of the first tapes I had was Thriller, I want to say. That was one of the first tapes I bought. And this grew, and I just grew to love R&B music, in high school, junior high, high school. Love a good mixtape. Love songs to the girls I was trying to holler at. And so, that was R&B music, love songs. I love a good love song. And that's how it grew. And that's why I love it so much. What do I think about the state of R&B music? It's different now because it's not played on mainstream radio as much as it used to be. So it's still very, very successful. It's kind of a little bit behind the scenes. So my goal is to try to keep it, front of the scenes. We have a lot of individual artists that do well. I mean, you have like Jasmine Sullivan, you have Kehlani, you have Victoria Monet, Money Long, Luke James, all these artists. Groups, now it's a different story. I think maybe Flow is one of the main groups there that they're out of the UK. So that's I still think it's there. You'll hear it more through the sampling, whether it be hip hop groups that are sampling R&B groups, pop music samples R&B groups, rock. So it's still the foundation. It's still foundational. It's just not played as much mainstream. You really have to look for it. And so that's kind of the main difference. Radio really took a shift in the late 90s. And so R&B music, with the emergence of like EDM music, became a little bit more appealing for radio based on my research and inside sources. The hip hop music, they chose one genre instead of two. It's a lot to it, but that's my long answer to that question.
Yeah. There's no simple answer, right? There's micro events that make things evolve one way or the other, and it works for this or any other industry for that matter. But it's curious to me, being a creative and a musician, as to why favor wanes sometimes with certain styles, and what it is about that headspace. What it does in the zeitgeist of humanity, where, for years and years and years, there was a period, like in movies, we come back to movies, there's a period in the 50s and 60s where Westerns were all the rage, right? For like 6 or 7 years. It was like all that Hollywood put out. And then like a switch went off. It was over.
No more.
And like people were just exhausted by it. And maybe there's style fatigue that happens over time. I think some certain things, especially with music and with art, are timeless, and some styles come and go. I've always felt that there was a very much a foundational aspect to R&B. Mm-hmm. And even though it's not one of the prevalent styles that I listen to, when I hear good R&B, I really appreciate it
Yeah.
because there is the modes and the complex chord structure and the melodies in it. It's just it's a feeling that just runs deep. It
Oh,
runs
yeah. Yeah.
real deep.
When you hear popular music now, they're emulating the similar chord structure, chord changes from R&B music from back in the day. You know, whether it be a pop group, rock group, like they are kind of following the same patterns that R&B music was foundational for back in like the 50s and 60s. You look at K-pop and how those groups are successful, where they're following the blueprint of like a New Edition or a TLC. Like those groups are following the same playbooks, but now currently they're a little bit more successful than regular groups just because they're doing it better. So what can we learn from them? But you can see how they're emulating a lot of the same, whether it's in the music or in the marketing of the groups too.
It's funny you say K-pop. I just watched that K-pop Demon Hunters movie, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. It sounds like I'm being embarrassed to say it, but some of those tunes were really catchy, and
Oh,
for a million years, like I have a friend that his wife was trying to convince me to watch this, and I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll get around to it. I'll get around to it. I finally get around to it, and a couple of the tracks, I was like, yeah, I get the appeal.
yeah, yeah,
I get
yeah.
the appeal of this. I don't know why Sony lost their shirt and sold it to Netflix for pennies on the dollar,
Yeah, they
but
didn't see it.
well,
Yes, they didn't see it.
Netflix is gonna. I'm sure there will be sequels because
Yes.
it was a sensation, an absolute sensation. So coming back to your speaking engagements, it kind of coincides and bleeds into your coaching, which is another aspect of the Amani experience. And this is why right out of the gate, I'm like, man, you've got this plethora. Your business mix and your value add is just
Right.
really, really cool. How did you come upon being an industry music coach, building that coaching program? You mentioned it earlier. You mentioned some of the pillars. What stimulated you to say, like, I think this is a value that needs to be added?
Definitely. And you remember everything about my business is always centered around music. Music is
Mm-hmm.
at the core, it's just different branches in the
Sure.
ecosystem. As a music business professor at Cal State University Fullerton, I just saw how much there was a gap between the music industry and people that were either working artists, musicians, or people who wanted to get into the industry. A lot of information is gatekept in the music industry. So my goal is to close the knowledge gap, whether you're a student in the university or you're an individual musician that's trying to find a way. There's so many artists that I'll meet, and some of these artists are very successful. You know, they've Grammy nominated, maybe they've won Grammys, they've sold or had over 1 million streams, but they still, some of the basics they just have no knowledge of. It could be even as basic as, have you signed up for a PRO, Performance Rights Organization, to help you collect your public performance royalties? You'd be shocked that some people are like, I heard about ASCAP, BMI, but I haven't signed up for it. Okay, no, you got to sign up right away. Have you signed up for Sound Exchange so you can get your digital royalties if it's being played on like iHeartRadio or Pandora XM, etc.? And so the coaching is just, I'm really helping to educate musicians so that they can make the best business decisions possible. And that could be signing up for these royalty rights. That could be creating a fan to artist platform like a Patreon. If you have a special drop and want to use Even, you can do that. Just whatever you can do to best monetize your artwork so you don't have to suffer from the myth of a starving artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you want to keep up to date as things change in the industry. You want to be up to date and make sure you're adjusting, you're not caught out there, evaluating contracts. And then we get into more advanced things like sync, like that's the world you work and live in, synchronization
Mm-hmm.
and placing your music into TV shows, commercials, movies, video games, etc. Like that's just activating all these different revenue fountains. We say fountains because streams in, so that you can be a thriving artist. And it primarily through education, and then some levels of the coaching, it'll be a done for you solution where I actually work with them and we have an action plan and we make things happen. That's kind of
Very
what I
cool.
do. That was the goal. I think one time I heard this interview, it was Michael McDonald, and he was on Questlove's show. And if you remember, he had the show I Keep Forgetting, the song I Keep Forgetting, You're Not Gonna Fall in Love. And Regulators samples that song. And back in the day, they approached him to properly get the permission, and he sold it to them for like $30,000. But at the time, he didn't get any publishing or any songwriting credits. So this is a legendary artist from the Doobie Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
left tens of millions of dollars on the table because of knowledge. So you take these stories, that's the inspiration behind just trying to close the knowledge gap and make sure people, whatever stage you are in your music career, can make the best business decisions possible.
Yeah, and I'm kind of reverse engineering everything because I'm doing it from the opposite side. No paywall. Here it is. Here's my royalty-free license. You have to give attribution in movies, TV, YouTube videos, anywhere else that you do it, right? And I'm chasing the back end. Like recently, I just started engaging a company in regards to neighboring rights, which is another little funnel. Another funnel segment that not a lot of people know about, and it's kind of a misnomer because it's weird. It's like, that's the weird thing about this industry. There's these little things, you've got your master's rights, you've got your performance rights, you've got your composition rights, you've got mechanicals, you've got, neighboring rights and all this different thing. And then you engage somebody and you're like, oh, I can't help you because this person already handles that for you and it's in conflict. And getting all that right is complex. And people just think royalty-free music composer. Oh, it's just free. No, it's, I have to make a living too.
Yes, that's good. Neighboring rights, that's a whole complex thing. You could your music could be really popular in Australia and Japan, and if you have no knowledge about neighboring rights, you're not collecting any of that revenue.
Yeah.
It just breaks my heart. So great point. Yes, I agree.
Now, do you incorporate any kind of marketing coaching or techniques into this coaching aspect
Yeah, I do. And what we do is we really focus on your own platform. So I always love to use I forget what it's called, but like, think of Edgar Allan Poe. For marketing for music, Edgar Allan Poe. So P, paid marketing, owned marketing, earned. Paid is you're paying for ads. That's simple. You're paying for ads, boosting posts, billboards, that's paid. Owned is the platforms you own, your website and your email list. I really focus on having my artists try to set up some sort of lead magnet so they can capture email addresses from people who come to your world, primarily your website. I think that's important. We love to focus on social media, your followers, all that, but those are kind of vanity metrics. And you're old enough to remember MySpace was here and gone very quickly. Facebook took it out. So you lost all that. TikTok disappears for 12 or an hour or a day, 12 hours or a day. People are freaking out.
Right.
What can you do to own as much of your audience as possible so that if these platforms go away, you still have the email addresses? I feel pretty confident email is going to be here for a while. So that's the marketing. And then you have earned, whether it be appearing on a podcast, getting an article written about you in a blog or publication, all that. In addition, now we must really pay close attention to, back in the day, it used to be SEO, search engine optimization. Now it's like AEO, like AIEO. People are now going more towards searching for things and people on AI platforms than Google. So what are you doing on your own platforms? Whether you have an interview, you're transcribing it, you're sharing information on your website so that when the AI is crawling to find the data, they're going to find you and recommend you. That's a whole new aspect that the majority of musicians aren't really thinking about. So that falls into the marketing category. So that's my answer. Yes, for marketing, I really focus on own properties and trying to stay ahead of the current trends.
Yeah. That, you bring up a point that it's on my list for this year. That is the email list, and setting up a funnel for that as well.
Yes.
And that's not happened yet, but I know how important it is. I've actually spoken about it on this podcast, and I'm not taking my own advice yet. but
I say, not as I do. I've been there too.
Part of it is not unlike yourself. I have my hands in a lot of different cookie jars, and it's sometimes you have to focus on the minutia of the administrative aspect of what you're doing and get that in order before you can focus on some of the surgical things. So that third, fourth quarter this year, that's those capture, those ways of the CRT and all the way to capture all that stuff. That's where I'm at. So it's a lot, especially when you're a one person shop or just a handful of people shop, which most people are, most independent musicians are. They don't have this giant pile of money. You're like, okay, let's Yeah, go ahead and spend $100,000 on that campaign, you
No, I
know?
can't do it. But if you know what you need to do, maybe you can try to then you can use AI to kind of make some things help them. I forget what it's called, but when you set up different prompts and things so that they can kind of streamline what's going on. If you know, it's better to know and know what you need to do than not know at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what would you say in your experience current day are the 3 best places to build your brand?
So the 3 best places to build your brand, and you're thinking in terms of like, are you thinking of sort of social media platforms, or like what are you thinking when?
I would be open to that or traditional metrics. So,
Okay,
yeah.
I would say in a live actual community. So you get a part of a community where there are real people there building your brand within there. I would say your email list. So building your brand through your own written or video and capture thought leadership. So you have the video content, you're posting it up on YouTube or Instagram, but also on your website. So that's how you're growing your brand through thought leadership. And then for musicians specifically, just going out and performing in different venues, different places around the world. And as you're going, collecting email addresses and contact information so you can grow your community. I think those are the 3 best places. So you have a little space online. You cannot ignore online. You have some place where you're going to perform and draw people to your website, your ecosystem. And then we got to do live performances. I think that's the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And you made a incredibly valid and important point earlier, which is social media is great and all, but again, it's vanity, it's optics, it's doom scrolling optics, you know, or suggested optics based on, you know, it does find the algorithmic people based on what they're interested in and what they hover over, right, or what they thumb up and like or actually comment on. But ultimately, this has been a very short period of time that this has been prevalent in our society, and what's outlasted that has been emails. And I mean, we still use emails to reset passwords. We still use emails as the predominant way of communicating when you sign up for a service. And until that gets replaced by some other algorithm, not algorithmic, but like some other way of identifying Amani or Tim specifically, that's going to be the go-to. It's going to have the most security. Again, a lot of times it's like for password resets and everything else. So until they change that systematically, you got to come back to that. Right.
Absolutely.
And
You check your email all the time. And even if you don't open it, you'll still see the subject line.
mhm,
And it'll be like, Tim's got a new album out. Check it out. So you might not open it, but you remember it.
mhm,
And it just really, really helps. You do a newsletter, you do it consistently, and it just grow your email list. And I also want to say, like, a lot of people get mad at me. We have this healthy debate. But if you should get your first name, last name.com and use that as like your base or your artist name. If you're Leslie the singer, then it's
I did it.
leslietheSinger.com. Info at Leslie. Try to get away from Gmail because it's going to elevate your profile when you're talking to people in like labels and sync companies and music supervisors, etc. If they see you've got info at, AmaniRoberts.com, that's going to be better than Amani at gmail.com. Like I try to emphasize this as early on as possible. Get your first name, last name, domain name, get your artistname.com and set up, sacrifice a cup of coffee, 2 cups of coffee from Starbucks a month for 1 month to get your domain name set up. It seems very basic, but so many people resist it that it's just interesting.
Yeah. And it's understandable that maybe in the baby step early stages, people relegate it to standard things. In fact, I still have like Tim Kulig Free Music at Gmail, and I still get people communicating me there. But I've shifted to socials at timkulig.com and Tim at timkulig.com. Those are better. They show the brand. They show the brand has a solid, it has a foundation, right? And it's not just this passive thing. Anybody can get a Gmail account.
Right.
Are you paying for a website? Do you have a sophisticated looking website? Does it
It's just little things here and there that will help increase your presence and it just increase your value in the eyes of other people who could potentially work with you.
Yeah. So Professor Amani, was that an evolution to all these other things you're doing, or was that the horse before the cart? Like, were you teaching before all this, or did that evolve over time? And what do you teach as a professor?
I think, it kind of, teaching was the bridge to get me from DJing full time to where I am now. I'll say that. So it's
Okay.
kind of a mixture of both, which is interesting.
Nice.
I grew up the son of a college professor. My dad was a professor at Howard University. I wanted nothing to do with being a professor at all.
Isn't that
Somehow,
interesting?
some way, it found its way back to me, and I love it. It's the favorite thing that I do. I teach music business. So I teach Management 477 music business. I have students from the School of Business, because that's where the course is based out of. I have students from the School of Music, Communications, and we just get in there for 17 weeks and I walk them through licensing, royalties, touring, copyright. We talk about all these things, marketing. They have 3 fun projects. Their favorite project is, you would like this. I let them take 3 different properties of media. It could be a TV show scene, a movie scene, or it could be a podcast interview, and they have to play the role of music supervisor and place what music they feel would be underneath what scene. They love that one.
That's
That's one
awesome.
of the projects. It's awesome. And then we have 3 projects. My goal is really to prepare them to be able to go out into the world and either get a job in the music industry or and grow their platform if they're musicians so they can properly market themselves. So that's what I teach. I teach like three sections of that, and Cal State University Fullerton. I created the class for the university because I saw it was a need. So I created the
Fantastic.
class. It took us like 3 years to get it through all the red tape or yellow tape, whatever kind of tape. And it was so successful. Funny because other administrators are like, you're lucky if you have 14 or 15 students that will take the class. We had 35 our first semester, and then we've always had an excess of 25 to 30 cents. Wait list a couple semesters, and the university we have created a minor, music business minor, based on the success of the class.
Well, that's fantastic.
I'm just so proud of it. I love teaching it. It brings me so much joy.
All in person?
All in person. So we do in person on like 1 day a week, and then we'll have a lab on the Thursday, Tuesday or Thursday. The lab is when I would bring in professionals like such as yourself, and we just do an interview. So we'll do the work on a Tuesday, and then they can meet someone in the industry on a Thursday, usually 10 out of the 16 weeks. So they're increasing their network. They're seeing there's publicists they can work with, music producers, music supervisors, people that have a label. And so they're getting exposure because, the music business is a lot about who you know. So they're learning that hands-on. And and then what we do for that music supervision project is I will send the top 3 or 4 to a music supervisor just as like a bonus to get their feedback too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then finally, to round out this whole thing, Amani, you have a podcast that's kind of overarching all of this brand, correct? And
so that was I think Amani Experience podcast, and that one's paused, but I do Adventures in Business now with my co-host Mandy. And that really, we talk to like people who work in the events industry, like C-suite people, but that's good for the musicians because those are people that will hire them to work the corporate events. So you don't always need to work in clubs. Most people think, I got to go and bus or I need to go work at a club. No, if you can get hired for some corporate events, that'll make you more money than you can do from like 4 clubs or whatever.
I have a friend that for several years was part of a event/wedding band and made a fortune doing that. They just, but which I could never do because I learned early on in my music journey that I wanted nothing to do with playing covers. There were some songs like in the beginning you like it. You're like, oh, can I do this? Can I emulate this? Can I play this? Then eventually it's like, well, somebody's done this. I want to see what's up here that nobody's done before.
Yeah.
And I really want to take that journey and go down that rabbit hole and even expose myself to the fact that I might release this and nobody might care. But if I did like I kind of think about Rick Rubin's advice, like write it for you first and then you release it to the world and you don't have control over who likes what. Right. So it's just when you feel like it's ready to show a friend. This is the advice I remember from The Creative Act. I read that book. I got to read it again this year because I read it last year and absolutely adored it. And there's just every chapter is just a nugget of really, really solid advice.
Back here somewhere. So
yeah. It's such a great. He's incredible. I someday hope to meet him before we both leave this mortal coil. Yeah. But he just incredible advice that just says, don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to jump on a trend. I'll emulate a style, but I'll do it in my own way. And I have to constantly check myself and be like, just whatever's coming through you, just make it happen, because it has to be unique to you, and it has to be something that you enjoy, that you're creating. And that authenticity, believe it or not, the audience knows. The audience knows when you're just trying to trying to rip somebody off, you know? So I absolutely, without a doubt, try never to do that. I try to make something unique and novel. And when in doing so, there's an opportunity for it to be crickets, or there's an opportunity that suddenly I just see like, wow, those metrics are pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't expect that.
Yeah, it resonates. Exactly.
It's never on the track you think either.
I know.
You know,
that's true for every artist, though. It's always the B side. It's always the B side, or the track that gets added late to the album that actually is the hit. The story is like the test of time. It always happens.
Yeah, it's usually because you didn't overwork it. You know, there's a lot of those are just, I was just feeling this, and the timing isn't even great. Like I'll look at it, I'll be like, man, I didn't even really quantize that well enough. And I just feel like it's not my best work. And people are like, this is the best thing you ever did. And I'm like,
exactly.
I'm like, did you hear that orchestration I did? Like
No, yeah, they like this one.
It's just absolutely crazy. So what is the future for Amani Roberts? What are some of the goals that you have coming down the pipeline? You clearly have a value add mix that is incredible. I mean, I applaud you. You've got a lot of stuff going on, and it seems like you're influencing a lot of people's lives in a very positive way. What's next?
I think what's next is I just want to continue to grow like my coaching kind of we'll say community. So working with as many artists as possible, and just educating. That's the main goal right now, just through like, speaking to people who might hear me on a podcast or on a stage, doing that. And then I want to turn my book into a trivia game. So I'm working on that throughout the next year. So that's kind of a project on the side. Those are the two main goals. I'm trying to stay focused on that. And that's what's next.
Awesome. And if anybody's interested in working with you or learning more about who Amani Roberts is and what the Amani experience is all about, how would they get a hold of you?
Go to amaniexperience.com/call. I'll set up 30-minute free calls with any musician, any music professional that wants, to talk and maybe get advice. And then from there, we can see if maybe you want to join part of my coaching program. And that's the best way to reach me. Socials is at Amani Experience for the most part, or Amani Roberts on LinkedIn, which I do spend a good amount of time on. But yeah, mainly amaniexperience.com/call. We set up a free call and see how I can help.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for reaching out. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and getting to know better what you do and what value you have to offer. And I look forward to seeing more from you over the time and continuing to discuss things with you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Tim. It's been fun. And thank you for asking some great introspective questions.
You bet.